So our brother Nathan will speak to us now on the subject Rolling Stones. Brother Nathan.
Good morning, all. In the calendar of the churches around the world, it is considered Palm Sunday, the Sunday before Easter. If you think back to the Gospels, Easter being the resurrection of Jesus, well, the week before is when he had his entry into Jerusalem, like Mark said this morning, with people crying out, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. And it's a time of year when it's very common to think about Jesus' death and resurrection. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing to do. Today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Jesus' death and resurrection, but perhaps with a different angle than what you may have previously considered. We're going to look at a design theme, a pattern, a design pattern, a motif, a type, a symbol that happens all throughout the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, and really has its culmination in the death and resurrection of Jesus. So there's two parts of the morning. First, we're going to identify this pattern. And then second, we'll ask, so what? What is there to learn from it? So to help understand, I want to talk about Caleb first, my son Caleb. So Caleb is 2. He's turning 3 in a couple weeks. And at bedtime, Caleb is sure of one thing each night. Caleb makes sure, Caleb, what do we always have to close when you go to bed? What do you close? You close a door. We close a door to the outside, but we also close, what's the other door we have to close? Joanna and Kaya, what door do we close inside your room? The closet door. We close the closet door, and Caleb is very particular about making sure that closet door is closed, because there's some shadows in that closet that may have been frightening, especially when he was younger. And the thought is, inside the closet, it's kind of dark, it's a little bit frightening. We want to close that. Outside the closet, he's good. He knows what's outside. But you close the closet, you cover what's inside, and what's outside is good. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about rolling stones, or rolling away stones. Opening the doors to closets kind of thing. And I want you to start thinking, when is there a time in the Bible, and we'll go through lots of examples, when a stone was covering something, but then that stone, that covering, was rolled away? There's going to be a lot. And there's lots of different themes and variations on this thought of rolling away the stone, but it more or less looks like this. So I got 4 steps here. So first step, wickedness belongs in a cave. It deserves to be swallowed up by the cave. Put the bad stuff in the closet, all right? Wickedness goes in the cave. However, step 2, a righteous person finds himself in the cave. Step 3, there's a covering, oftentimes a stone. In our closet example, there's a bad closet, someone good goes in the closet, a door covers the closet. We got a cave, someone righteous goes into the cave, oftentimes a stone covers that cave. And then the 4th step is that covering is removed, the stone is rolled away, the door is opened, which grants life to that righteous person. That's what we're going to be talking about. That is the theme, the design pattern of rolling away the stone. Some examples to get your thinking started. Let's look at John 11 real quick. We'll do 3 quick examples briefly. John 11 is the story of Lazarus. And in John 11, starting at verse 38, it says, So Jesus, again being deeply moved within, came to the tomb. Now it was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. And Jesus said, Remove the stone. So it's just a snippet out of the whole Lazarus story. You have a righteous man, Lazarus, who is dead. He's in the cave, he's dead. There's a stone covering that cave. Jesus said, Remove the stone, take the stone away. And what comes out? Lazarus. Life emerges from the cave. Okay, that's one quick example. How about Daniel 6? Let's go to Daniel chapter 6, and we have Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel in the lion's den, Daniel chapter 6, verses 16 to 17. Then the king gave orders, and Daniel was brought in and cast into the lion's den. The king spoke and said to Daniel, Your God, whom you constantly serve, will himself deliver you. a stone was brought and laid over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and the signet rings of his nobles, so that nothing would be changed in regards to Daniel. And you know the end of the story. Daniel spends the night in the cave with a stone covering where there should be death, where the lions should tear him apart. But in the morning, stone is removed. Daniel comes out. There's life given to the righteous person. All right, here's another one. Genesis 29. Genesis 29 is about Jacob at the well. This is the first time Jacob meets his future wife, Rachel. So Jacob is running away from Esau. We had that whole little birthright incident where Esau's a little bit upset at him, to put it lightly. Jacob goes away, goes into the desert. And then in verse 2, it says, Jacob looked and saw a well in the field. And behold, 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it. For from the well they watered the flocks. Now the stone on the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, they would then roll the stone away from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. So we have a well, water, life is at the bottom of the well, and when you take away the stone, you can have the water of life. So what happens? If you skip down, Rachel and her shepherdess come to the well, and they're not able to access the life. They can't take away the stone. They have to wait, it says, for somebody. Verse 8, but they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered, and they roll away the stone from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep. Then verse 9, Rachel comes up. In verse 10, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. So Jacob uncovers the stone. He rolls back that stone, the covering. Rachel drinks from it, and they have life, both in a literal sense. There's water in the desert that gives you life, but also there's this life as a result of a marriage, right? A seed that comes from it. There's even thoughts about Jesus at the well in John 4 when he says there will be living water. You won't have to drink again. So all these thoughts about a stone covers something. When the stone is rolled away, it leads to life. And this is most expounded on in Joshua 5. That's what Mark read today at a place called Gilgal, which the text tells us Gilgal means rolled away. And that was kind of the genesis of this whole study for me, because I'm reading Joshua 5, and there's circumcision. What does that have to do with rolling away? A bunch of people get circumcised and we call it roll away. That doesn't make sense to me. So that's kind of what started all of this. And the story is that Israel has finally entered the promised land. With Moses, they escaped out of Egypt. 40 years they wandered in the wilderness. Finally, they cross over the Jordan River. They're ready to enter the promised land. God parts the waters. They go in and they circumcise the males. And we're not told in Joshua the literal reason why no one had been circumcised yet, why it was so important in that time. But we can read throughout Genesis, throughout the scriptures, and this concept of circumcision, it started with Abraham. And what God said to Abraham was, I pick you. I choose you. You are the one who I'm going to have a covenant with. I'm going to have promises. There's going to be life for you. And circumcision was a sign of that covenant. That's Genesis 17. And as we go throughout the Bible, Israel is consistently told to circumcise their hearts. It's not just about this physical act. You needed to behave like you belonged as part of this covenant. And in the New Testament, circumcision points forward to baptism. The thought of removal of the flesh, putting to death the old man. You die in the water, you're resurrected in new life, you're raised anew as part of a new covenant, part of the body of Christ. And so in Joshua 5, it says the reproach of Egypt was removed. Circumcision cuts off the reproach of Egypt. And that's everything we're talking about. Israel was dead, essentially. They were slaves to sin in Egypt. They were slaves to that hardened heart of flesh. Now, it's time to remove that flesh and say, we're not slaves in Egypt anymore. We're not in bondage to the old man. We're not slaves to flesh. We were just We went through the Jordan River. We were symbolically baptized. The waters were parted. And now we're raised again. We have new life as part of God's people. That's what rolling stones is all about. There's not really stones that you see in Joshua 5, other than the Jordan River, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. But what we have is a barrier that separates God and the people. God and the people, there's a barrier. So that barrier, that flesh, is physically removed. It's cut off. It's rolled away at Gilgal. And now the people of Israel, the people of God, have life. The reproach of Egypt, that's like that stone that's covering the cave. That's like Caleb's closet door, right? It's covering all that death in there. Well, let's roll it away. Let's open the stones. Let's have circumcision. Let's have baptism. And what it leads to is life. This is just like the Red Sea. The Red Sea in Exodus, when it parts, there's resurrection. There's freedom proclaimed from bondage to sin and death. We have the rolling back, the dividing of the waters. Israel walks through on dry land. They go from death in the chaos waters to life on the dry land. It's the same as Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark, after the flood, they're in the ark. What happens? The covering of the ark is removed. They go in the ark, the door is shut. They go through this death, chaos waters. The doors are opened. What comes out? Life comes out. It's the same thing Jonah. Jonah is in the belly of the fish. The mouth is shut. Then what happens? Mouth is opened. He's spit out onto dry land. Goes through those chaos waters of death, emerges with life on the other side. It's a neat design principle, isn't it? I think it's a neat little thing. So that's the, I guess you can call it, the theme. Now there's some variations to it. We need to talk about mouths of caves. It's kind of hard to pronounce. Mouse, plural mouse, the mouth of a cave. Look at Joshua 10. So we've been rolled away at Gilgal. Now Joshua 10, we have more caves. And we have the mouth of caves. This is a peculiar story that has a lot of detail to it. And whenever the Bible has a lot of detail to a story, it's big blinkers saying something's going on, something bigger than what appears is happening. Joshua 10, verse 16 to 18. Now these 5 kings had fled and hidden themselves in the cave at Makkedah. It was told Joshua, saying, the 5 kings had been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah. Joshua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave and assign men by it to guard them. So they've all run into Caleb's closet and the door has been shut. All right, that's what we are in our principle. We got this. Then verse 22, Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave and bring the 5 kings out to me from the cave. And we're thinking this is great. We know what's going to happen. Life is going to be given to them, forgiveness. This is great. But what we actually have in verse 26 is the opposite. So they come out. Well, verse 24, it says, come near, put your feet on the necks of these kings. So they came near, put their feet on their neck. Verse 26, so afterward Joshua struck them and put them to death. And he hanged them on 5 trees. And they hung on trees until evenings. What we have now is the opposite. So if we're playing a little theme and variations on the piano, you have the major key, now we're in the minor key, all right? It's actually kind of cool. I didn't think about that till now. But yeah, that's what we have here. So it's the opposite of the design pattern. So instead of the righteous person going into a cave, and then they come out to life, you have a wicked person that goes into the cave. And the stone is rolled in and it covers the wicked. It doesn't roll away to uncover righteousness. It closes the door. It rolls it over there to seal in the wicked. There's a lot of examples in the Bible of the ground, the earth, a cave, opening its mouth and swallowing the wicked. Think about Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. In the wilderness, number 16, it says the earth opens its mouth to swallow them. These were the people who rebelled against Moses. They said, hey, follow us. And the ground opens up and swallows them. There's a verse, Isaiah 5, verse 14, where Sheol opens its mouth in Jerusalem and all the wickedness therein descends into it. Or Revelation 12. It's a complicated passage where a dragon is chasing a woman. You have kind of this evil thing chasing Israel, and out of the dragon pours water. Water is going to consume and sweep away the woman, Israel. What happens? the earth swallows up this water. What came out of the wicked dragon is being swallowed up by the earth. And in Revelation, at the end, we really see this end fulfillment of this design pattern. Revelation 18, talking about the destruction of Babylon, it says a great millstone is tossed into the sea, never to happen again. So Babylon, this wicked nation, is going to be tossed into a sea, and the sea is going to gobble it up, throw them into the closet, and cover the lid. And then 2 chapters later in Revelation 20, when it comes time for judgment, those that were in the sea, those that were in death, in Hades, it says, they give up their dead that were in them, right? So there's a bunch of dead people in the sea in this thing. The sea gives them up for judgment. And we're again thinking, hey, this is great, right? Are they righteous people being freed? No, that's not the picture in Revelation 20. The wicked people have been swallowed by the earth, and they deserved it. These were not righteous people who were unjustly bound. No, the grave spits them out, and where do they go? The next verse, they go to a lake of fire. They don't go to dry land. They don't go to waters of life. They go from a sea of death to a lake of fire, another sea of death. And we have the final wrinkle in this design pattern, right? So one more variation. So to recap, the first main theme, we have a righteous person in a cave. A stone is rolled away to give some life. And then our anti-theme is wicked people are swallowed up by the earth and they remain in death there. So the question then happens, what happens if you have a righteous person that gets swallowed up by the earth? All right, we're combining kind of both things here. Well, think about Cain and Abel, very beginning of the Bible. Let's look at Genesis chapter 4 and read how it talks about this. So Genesis chapter 4, after Cain kills Abel, in verse 10, God says to Cain, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. Now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand." What happened, the ground swallowed Abel's blood, but Abel's blood was holy. It wasn't wicked. It didn't deserve to be swallowed up like the other wicked men. And that's why then the ground curses Cain, and Abel's blood calls out from it. Abel doesn't belong there. The righteous blood should not have been shed. Therefore, the blood cries out. It's waiting for release. It doesn't deserve death. That's what we have with Cain and Abel. And it brings us right to Jesus. Because when Jesus willingly gives up his life, when his holy, righteous, perfect blood was shed, it was spilled and the ground received his blood. It swallowed Jesus in a cave. He was put in a tomb. A stone was rolled away to cover it up. That wasn't right. That's not how it should go. The wages of sin are death, Paul tells us in Romans, but Jesus didn't sin. He didn't deserve to be sealed up in that cave. He shouldn't have been in Caleb's closet. He should have been outside where all the righteous people were. This is the same as Abel. Just like Abel, the blood of Abel had been waiting for thousands of years, crying out from the ground, waiting to be spit out onto dry land so that Abel could have resurrection and life. But Hebrews 12 tells us that the sprinkled blood of Jesus speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. And Peter tells us in Acts 2 that the grave could not hold Jesus. There's this righteous, blameless man in a cave. He didn't deserve to be there. And now we're back to our original design pattern. When a righteous person is in the cave, what happens? The stone is rolled away, and there's life. In Jesus, he's in the cave, he's in the tomb. The stone is rolled away, and he emerges with life. The barrier between life and death is removed. The curtain is torn, the veil is lifted, and Jesus rises from the dead. Jesus emerges from the cave. He comes out of this dry tomb, or comes out of the tomb and walks on dry land. And with this, Jesus provides hope to Abel. He provides hope to all of us that the righteous won't be abandoned to Sheol. There's hope that the death of the righteous does not end in death. There is life to come. There is life after death. There is going to be someone who can roll away this barrier between life and death. In all of our lives, where if we confess Christ Jesus and we're baptized into his death, we can join with Jesus into his resurrection. Because if we ask ourselves, do we belong in the cave? Do we belong in Caleb's closet? Are we the righteous person who is unjustly put there? Or are we a wicked king who deserves to be put away? It's complicated, right? We strive to be faithful. We strive to roll away the flesh. When we go into baptism, we're saying, I'm going into the cave and coming out. I want that old part of me dead and gone. And we try and be part of this covenant, this circumcision of flesh. But at the end of the day, the essence of baptism, the essence of resurrection, the essence of rolling away stones, the essence of grace is that we cannot do it ourselves. We're not the ones who roll away the stones. It's the loving kindness and grace of God, the Father of Jesus, that we can walk through the seas, that we can walk out of the cave because God has rolled away the stone. He gave us example after example after example after example that God is able to roll away the stone and give life. And that's our hope. We see this in Jesus. And today we remember Jesus' death and resurrection. And we remember that the story ends with life, with a stone rolled away, with Jesus walking out with life. And we're told we can do the same. We can join Jesus in his death, and the stone for us will be rolled away, and we will have life.